Hello, everyone. It's Jackie back for another GameStop update. So, today I wanted to do something a little bit different. I wanted to focus on something that's happening on the chart that has historical significance with regards to GameStop. So, when we look at GameStop's daily time frame, okay, we're only going to be looking at two moving averages today. We're going to be looking at the 200 period in yellow, and we're going to be looking at the 50 period in blue, okay? Those are both simple moving averages, all right? When we zoom in on GameStop's current price action, okay, you'll see that there is a cross between the blue and the yellow. That is what's referred to as a golden cross. That is referred to as a golden cross, okay? Now, a golden cross is typically a very, very, very bullish signal, because what that signals to you is that the midterm price, right, the price over the last 50 candles is now above price over the last 200 candles. So what that's telling you is that price in the mid to short term is now above the average price of the long term, which is generally very bullish. It speaks to the sentiment and the positivity that's happening on the stock in the most recent of times, okay? So because we have that on the chart, right, and being that this is one of the most important daily moving average crosses that you can have on the chart, okay, I've gone through and I've highlighted all of the times that it has happened on GameStop stock, both the daily golden cross and the daily death cross. Now, the death cross is when the 50 period moving average crosses underneath the 200 period moving average. And again, this just signals the opposite of what we just talked about. It means prices in the short term and the midterm are going underneath the long-term price average. So it's signaling that price to us in the short to midterm is not as hot as it once was over the last longer period of time, aka 200 candles, right? So now that we understand that, let's look back at all of the times that this has happened, both bullish and bearish on GME's chart. Now, I've color coordinated them for a specific reason, and I will explain them as we go through. But orange and red are the death crosses, and green and this funny shade of blue are going to be golden crosses, okay? So this first golden cross that I labeled is actually supposed to be a blue one, but that's fine. So this first golden cross, all right, that happened when GameStop had shortly after its IPO. I say shortly, it was basically it was a full entire year. Now, the reason that I highlighted this particular golden cross here, all right, with a blue shade, is to tell us when that cross is not as strong as it possibly could be. And what I mean by that is we have our 50 period moving average slopes upwards, right? But our 200 period moving average is sloping down. When that is taking place, one moving average is sloping up, the other is sloping down. It is not the strongest of golden crosses, okay? But here's a really big important tip, okay? Here's a really big important tip with regards to GameStop or any moving averages that you guys will ever trade or use. When you have these crosses, both bullish and bearish, price loves to come back and test those crosses. Boy, does it like to test those crosses. Whether it's the 50 or the 200, it loves to test those moving averages after they make those crosses. And you can see when this one crossed, price was sitting there and tested it for a couple of days before making a nice, healthy, explosive move to the upside, right? And then we look over at this death cross that took place here. And here's a funny thing to note, right? So this death cross took place, and one of the moving averages was still sloping upwards, or 200, so that's why I've labeled this with orange. And you can see when that death cross had occurred, price was underneath it, right? So what does it like to do? It loves to test those moving averages. So first it tested the 50 period, and it managed to hold and get back above that. Then it tested the 200 period, and it broke above that. Then you had a golden cross, and that golden cross was actually not tested until a few weeks later, right? So even though we had a really, really, really positive cross, right, this was never tested. And even when we had this negative cross, that test did not immediately occur. right? It took time for these things to test and develop. Now, with regards to this cross, both of our moving averages at that period in time were sloping upwards. When that cross happened, even though price was well above both those moving averages, because both of them were sloping upwards, that was really positive, and price didn't necessarily need to test it in this moment. But as you can see, price then found the 50-period moving average. It failed. And then it tested the 200, and it accepted that. It accepted this golden cross. And then it found its way back above the 50, test, come back one more time, and then boom, huge move, right? So from this golden cross, from this very golden cross right here, GameStop managed to make, geez, look at this. I mean, this is crazy, right? From that golden cross, GameStop never had another golden or death cross, right? And it managed to go up 669% in the span of 4 years. That's huge, right? That is absolutely huge. So that golden cross where both of those moving averages were sloping upwards, very, 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 very positive thing to have happen, right? So the reason that I wanted to share all of these crosses with you was to share all of the different times that these golden and death crosses have happened. And you can see that there are a lot of statistical probabilities and very clear things that take place when these crosses happen, specifically when they're really bullish or really bearish crosses, i.e. both of your moving averages may be sloping down or both of them may be sloping up, depending on what you're looking for, right? So we look at all the information here, right? We kind of had a shitty death cross here, but this death cross here led to this double top, and then it just led to a destruction in price, right? So from this death cross here to the low that was made, GME went down 66%. And you guys can see for yourselves, right? Every single time one of these crosses happens, price makes big moves. Sometimes it takes a little bit for that big move to develop, but like, look at this golden cross that occurred, right? That's not an insignificant move, 40%, right? And then look at this death cross that occurs, right? 35% to the downside, right? So the reason that I wanted to share this with you guys was just so that you can understand my perspective when I discuss these golden and death crosses, okay? So now I want to bring you to the most recent bit of price action. Let's turn the drawings off here. So first and foremost, we have a golden cross. Now, two things are really interesting to me. First of all, the 200 period moving average is basically flat. It is not really sloping up. It's not really sloping down. It is borderline flat, which speaks to long-term price averages, right? Being around the $15.40 mark over the last 200 days, and that is held with relative consistency. Now, it hasn't, and we know that, and that is because of GameStop's insane volatility. But all we need to know is that price over the last 200 candles has begun to stabilize. That's what that moving average sloping flat tells us. And then we have the 50-period moving average, right? Which looks like it's trying to get into a bar fight. This thing's ready to break up and break out. Look at the size and look at the slope and the angle at which this thing is moving and breaking up. This is a very, very healthy death cross, a very, very healthy golden cross. And with regards to these golden crosses, right, you remember that Jackie was talking about how they like to be tested. But when they are typically bullish, right, when you see both of those moving averages pointing in the direction that you want to see, price doesn't necessarily need to test them, right? It just needed that cross to occur to confirm that the trend looks relatively positive, right? So we obviously got the news in the after hours, right, about GameStop's dilution being complete, and then the thing made a monster move, right? And that is fantastic now. Because at this stage, right, we're kind of left with just a few simple options, right? We have all of these gap fills up above. That's what these gray boxes are here, okay? The gray boxes are gap fills above. And all you need to know is quite simple. Either GameStop is going to begin breaking out to the upside after this golden cross, and it will become incredibly bullish, and price will make a large breakout move towards the top, trying to reach every single one of these gap fills north. And the other side of it is if GameStop fails to make a big breakout for those gap fills to the upside, it will come back down and it will test that golden cross. And then if it tests that golden cross, we want to see it consolidate as that cross remains held, as long as that blue holds above the yellow, right? Our 50 holds above the 200. If that manages to hold there and price does come down and test it, that it's like a launch pad. That's what happens. It's typically like a launch pad. Now, you guys will go back, right? Now, after watching this video, you guys will go back and you will look at some of the most recent examples with GameStop, right? So this example right here, pretty simple for you guys to see, right? 200 is sloping down. The 50 is sloping up. Yes, price did come and test it after the cross had occurred up here, right? Cross occurred when price was up here. It reverted to the mean, tested those moving averages. The first test, it did manage to hold. That was a great move. But then price came back, got under the 50, rejected it as resistance, came back, tested this as support until it broke through, and then tested it as resistance, and its final test of resistance sent this thing down. And it was not a bullish golden cross. It was semi-bullish, but one of your moving averages, your long-term one, was not sloping up. It wasn't even flat. It was going down. So that was a shitty one. And then the other most recent one that we've had post-sneeze is this one right here. And it's the exact same thing, you guys. 200 period sloping down, 50 sloping up. Price comes and tests it. It fails underneath the 50, fails underneath the 200. And when it fails both of those moving averages, it's see you later. And then you get the death cross, right? Your death cross forms right here. And what happens with this death cross? Both of them are sloping down. And what happens, right? What happens? Price comes and tests that death cross right here. It tests it here, fails that, tests it here, rejects, see you later, and look at what happens to GME share price, right? Look at what happens to this thing, right? It goes straight down, right? Straight down. 56% from that final test of the 200 after that very bearish death cross. Same thing with this one here. GME's 200 period moving average has basically been sloping down since all the way back here in December of 2021. And for the first time, right, we finally have a little piece of positivity. A 200 period moving average that is not just sloping down, but is finally flat. And this golden cross could be the golden cross that propels GameStop into absolutely explosive highs. And the reason I say that is because it is eerily reminiscent of the most recent one that we had during the squeeze, or excuse me, the sneeze. Your 200 period moving average was borderline flat, slightly sloping up, but borderline flat. Your 50 period moving average was exploding upwards. As that golden cross happened, yes, price came down, but it never tested it. In fact, it did not test this golden cross until all the way over here. Months later. And every test of that 50 period moving average led to explosive moves, i.e. confirming your trend, right? Confirming your trend. That's what we did. So I want you guys to see, right, how these golden crosses form and why you see super stink fucking shit posting about them. And they don't understand when they're bullish or when they're bearish. And now you haven't heard a peep out of anybody talking about this most recent one currently happening. It has happened. You've gone through. That is a golden cross. And it is a bullish golden cross because both of your moving averages, if they're not sloping flat or sideways, they are sloping upwards. So those are the scenarios going forward. Right? Either GME begins to break up and out, filling all these gaps towards the top side, and we begin explosive price moves. Or price fails at these levels and comes back and tests that golden cross. And that would be equally as bullish. Right? So this is why, I just don't have any fear at this point with GameStop. To me, there are so many bullish indications telling us that yes, something big and something explosive is coming. It is now our job to just simply read the technicals, read the charts, and just read what they tell us. And everything on this chart is telling us that it wants to go. That's just what it's telling us. So hopefully you guys have found this informative. All right. Hopefully you guys found this useful. I look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow. We'll have a little bit of a live stream tomorrow. And yeah, that's it. So guys, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And Jackie out.